Xi Jinping says he has full trust in the SAR's incoming chief executive, John Lee. COVID infection clusters at 2 central bars keep growing. And China falls short on a plan to have 10 Pacific Island nations endorse a sweeping economic and security agreement.
Good evening. President Xi Jinping heaped praise on John Lee's stance on matters concerning the nation and Hong Kong, saying he has full trust in the chief executive designate.
This as Lee received in Beijing today the official letter appointing him as the 6th leader of the Hong Kong SAR. Sharon Tang has the story.
President Xi Jinping met John Lee at the Diaoyutai State Guest House this afternoon. Xi first congratulated Lee on his election as the next chief executive of the Hong Kong SAR. The state leader then praised Lee for his contribution to safeguarding national security and the prosperity of Hong Kong. Xi noted the central government fully acknowledges Lee's work and gives him its full trust. The president also said 3 elections had been successfully held in the city since the electoral reform, adding that the new system meets the need of the city's development. John Lee then thanked Xi's encouragement. He said he's thankful for the central government's faith in him, adding it's the honor of his lifetime to be appointed as the 6th chief executive of Hong Kong. Lee added he will live up to Beijing's trust and the people's expectations. The meeting with the president came just hours after Lee and his wife, Janet Lam, met with Premier Li Keqiang at another venue. This morning, Premier Li gave Lee the official document appointing him as the 6th term CE of the Hong Kong SAR. Lee said, "We believe and anticipate the new government can bring together people from all sectors in Hong Kong so as to proactively respond to matters of concerns in society, consolidate and enhance Hong Kong's status as an international financial, trade and maritime hub." He added Lee's administration should continue to work on pandemic control and solve the most difficult livelihood issues. In response, John Lee vowed to do his best. Lee said, "At this very moment marking the 25th anniversary of the establishment of the Hong Kong SAR, I deeply understand the significant job that I will shoulder, and I will lead the next administration with loyalty and perseverance." Lee is expected to return to the city tomorrow. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
Hong Kong logged 275 new COVID infections, including 48 imported cases.
Health authorities reported that more people have been diagnosed with COVID after visiting 2 virus-hit bars in Central. Christy Khan reports.
The COVID outbreak cluster at the 2 different bars in Central are continuing to grow. 8 more patrons from Central and 11 customers from Iron Ferries and J. Borowski have contracted the virus. Health officials said 2 of the patients who tested positive yesterday visited both bars on May 21st. They added the 2 patients are not super spreaders or the source of infection, saying various factors contributed to this transmission in the bars.
Most of the cases, or even nearly all of the cases, have taken off their masks while they visited these 2 premises in that evening. According to information provided by the cases, on that evening, the environment inside the 2 bars are quite crowded with a lot of people.
Additionally, health authorities said the ventilation system in the 2 bars are not ideal, which increases the risk of transmission on the premises. Asked if the bars had violated anti-COVID regulations by inviting DJs to play music, the officials said relevant departments will conduct investigations accordingly. The authorities said the Omicron subvariant cluster is expanding as well. 3 more infections involving a family have been reported at Mons Parker Lodge. They live on a different floor and side of the block than the previous cases detected there. Health officials said they are not ruling out the possibility that there is transmission within the block, and they are waiting for the results of a genome analysis. Furthermore, 45 new COVID cases were reported across 34 schools. Two of them are from the DSC International School in Taikushing, which previously had an outbreak in a class. Meanwhile, the hospital authority reported 2 more patients died in public hospitals yesterday. Christy Khan, TVB News.
The third stage of the vaccine pass will take effect tomorrow, requiring people to be triple jabbed to enter different premises such as restaurants, shopping malls, and cinemas. Some residents rushed to this community vaccination center at Boundary Street Sports Center to take their third dose. According to the government's vaccination booking system, the center has been fully booked for the next few days. Meanwhile, the authorities said people who have received their first or second COVID jab or recovered from the virus within the past 6 months are exempted from the third stage of the vaccine pass requirement. Secretary for Civil Service Patrick Nip earlier said around 600,000 people, excluding those who have a recovery record, have not yet received a third dose.
The mainland has reported 122 more COVID-19 cases as the epidemic appears to be under further control. Shanghai accounted for 67 infections, with the vast majority being asymptomatic cases. The city reported no COVID-related deaths for the 4th consecutive day. Shanghai authorities say work and production will fully resume by June, and many districts have announced plans to assist enterprises. The city's Minhang district will set up a 20 billion yuan credit fund to support enterprise development. Baoshan district will provide a 1 billion yuan fund for its medium, small, and micro enterprises. Meanwhile, Beijing reported 8 new infections and 4 asymptomatic cases, while neighboring Tianjin reported 6 infections. Foreign Minister Wang Yi hosted a video meeting with 10 of his Pacific Island counterparts from Fiji today as he continues his tour of the region.
However, they were unable to agree to a broad, sweeping trade and security communique. Daniel Rao tells us more.
A draft communique and 5-year action plan sent to the invited nations by China ahead of their meeting in Fiji today with Foreign Minister Wang Yi showed Beijing was seeking a broad Pacific trade and security agreement. However, a consensus wasn't quite reached. Still, after the talks, Wang said the nations had agreed on 5 areas of cooperation. Among them were economic recovery from the pandemic and new agriculture and disaster response centers. However, one of the key outstanding issues was security. Wang said further discussions are needed to achieve more consensus. He said China will release its own position paper on its positions, propositions, and cooperation proposals with Pacific Island countries. He stated those who had been questioning why China has been so active in supporting Pacific Island countries should not be too anxious or nervous. Wang outlined Beijing has long championed developing nations in the Pacific and around the world. Following the news conference, China's ambassador to Fiji, Qian Bo, said there had been concerns on specific issues in the proposed agreement from some of the 10 Pacific nations. Qian stated that Beijing never imposes anything on other nations, let alone to China's developing friends and small island countries. He added China would try to release the position paper mentioned by Wang in the coming week. Despite not managing to achieve the sweeping multilateral agreement after the Fiji talks, Wang has successfully brokered smaller bilateral agreements during his tour. One of them came in Kiribati, which he visited last Friday. Kiribati's government said the 2 nations had signed 10 agreements after the visit, including pledges to strengthen economic ties and deals for a bridge construction project. Wang is now set to travel to the South Pacific Kingdom of Tonga for a 2-day visit on Tuesday. Daniel Rao, TVB News.
Under political reforms proposed by Sri Lanka's Prime Minister, youth protesters in the island nation would be invited to play a part in the governance of the country. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe said the constitutional revamp would see the powers of the president curtailed and parliament emboldened. He stated parliamentary committees would be put in charge of different areas, facilitating cooperation between lawmakers, protesters, and other experts. The Prime Minister suggested appointing 4 youth representatives to each of the 15 planned committees. Youth activists have camped outside President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's office for more than 50 days, demanding his resignation and government reform. They blame the president and his powerful family for sparking an unprecedented domestic economic crisis. Sri Lanka has defaulted on its foreign loans and is suffering shortages of essential goods such as fuel and medicine.
Meantime, Israeli police fired rubber bullets and used water cannons to disperse Palestinian protesters from the streets of Jerusalem on Sunday. The clashes came after thousands of Israeli nationalists paraded through the heart of the city's Muslim quarter. The participants, who were mostly young Orthodox Jewish men, were celebrating Jerusalem Day. The occasion marks the capture of the Old City by Israel during the 1967 Six-Day War. Palestinians see the event as a provocation. The Palestinian Red Crescent Rescue Service said at least 62 people were injured during demonstrations against the march, and 23 of them were hospitalized. Meanwhile, Israeli police arrested more than 50 protesters suspected of disorderly conduct or assaulting police officers. Last year, an 11-day conflict between Israel and Gaza militants erupted following the parade.
Still ahead on tonight's news, the Ukrainian president visits Kharkiv in his first trip outside the capital since the Russian invasion began. The city's accountant body fails to reach a consensus on renewing a mutual recognition agreement with the U.S. And half-price night rides on 19 designated KMB routes next month.
Welcome back to TVB News. Regional officials in eastern Ukraine say intense battles are continuing as Russian forces close in on key cities in the Donbass.
As Russia presses its offensive in Ukraine's industrial heartland, EU leaders are set to meet in a bid to agree on an elusive sixth package of sanctions against Moscow. Cameras caught the smoldering aftermath of a Russian missile strike on a warehouse. It was the second day in a row the facility in the city of Bakhmut was targeted. The city lies at the start of a crucial supply road to two major cities in the region. Ukrainian forces face an uphill battle as a powerful Russian assault aims to encircle them. Analysts say both sides are taking serious losses in the region, but Russia's foreign minister said yesterday that the liberation of the Donbass is an unconditional priority for Moscow. Still, the refusal of Ukrainian forces to withdraw has slowed a massive Russian advance across the region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky presented medals to service personnel on Sunday during a trip to the hard-hit Kharkiv region.
Дякую за захист незалежності нашої держави. Бережіть себе.
Zelensky thanked them for risking their lives for Ukraine's independence. He also met with regional officials to discuss the military situation and prospects for rebuilding destroyed areas. Zelensky has repeatedly demanded that the European Union target Russia's lucrative energy sector and deprive Moscow of billions of dollars each day in supply payments.
We continue to fight!
EU leaders are set to meet today and Tuesday in a new show of solidarity with Ukraine, but divisions over whether to target Russian oil in a new series of sanctions are exposing the limits of how far the bloc can go to help the war-torn country. EU governments have been unable to agree on a sixth package of sanctions against Moscow. The proposed embargo on Russian oil is not acceptable to Hungary and a big problem for a few other countries. Serbia's president has secured what he calls an extremely favorable three-year natural gas deal with Russia. Alexander Vučić made the announcement after a call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Vučić has refused to publicly condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and Serbia has not joined Western sanctions against Moscow. The former pro-Russian ultra-nationalist claims he wants to take Serbia into the European Union, but has spent recent years cementing ties with longtime ally Russia. The Balkan country is almost entirely dependent on Russian gas, and its main energy companies are under Russian majority ownership. It is not clear how Serbia would receive the Russian gas. If the European Union decides to shut off, the Russian supply that goes over its member countries. Kowloon motor bus passengers carrying the Octopus card will be able to enjoy half-price night rides on designated routes next month. A discount scheme will be available from 8 p.m. to the last bus of the day on 19 kmb routes during the entire month of June. The bus routes are mainly from New Territories West, New Territories North, and Chung Kwan O to Yau Tsum Mong District. 4 cross-harbor routes to Central and Wan Chai are also included in the scheme. Passengers will have to pay the original fare when boarding, but they can claim the discount within 10 to 30 working days through their Octopus mobile app or service stations. The plan, however, is not applicable to passengers who benefit from the $2 public transport fare scheme. The city's accountant body has failed to reach a consensus on renewing a mutual recognition agreement with the U.S. amid disputes over local qualifications.
Authorities explained one of the considerations is how to establish a more comprehensive bilateral recognition system. Timothy Lee has more.
For years, certified accountants in the city and the U.S. have been able to practice in each other's markets. That's after a mutual recognition agreement was established between the Hong Kong Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the U.S. International Qualification Appraisal Board. However, the agreement will officially end on December 31st. The agreement initially requires overseas applicants to have at least 1 year of experience in Hong Kong in order to practice in the city. The International Qualification Appraisal Board had hoped that the requirement could be waived by recognizing audit experience in the United States. In the end, both sides could not reach a consensus on the matter. During a LegCo meeting today, a lawmaker noted the accountancy sector will be regulated by the Accounting and Financial Reporting Council, AFRC, starting October 1st, and questioned whether a transition in the recognition agreement could be achieved.
Last week in the community, there was some heated debate, and some blame this new regulatory regime. What is the AFRC take on this, or any impact? The mutual agreement between Hong Kong and the U.S. doesn't mean that there are any problems on the standard of accountancy. The AFRC hope the bilateral recognition can be more mature, which facilitate exchange among professionals.
The Hong Kong Institute of Certified Public Accountants stressed that the requirement for 1 year of local experience is to ensure overseas applicants are familiar with the city's audit environment and relevant legal requirements. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The news Money Matters is up shortly.
Good night.